Hey everybody, today I'm going to go over my Occultist Poison Blade Blast build. So I've gone over a lot of builds related to Poison in the past, but due to a lot of the changes coming in the upcoming league, I decided to make a new build that shows off what you can really do with the Occultist class and Poison Blade Blast. It's got really great clear, huge explosions, which I personally love, and it's super cheap. You can get millions of DPS with literally 4 gems linked together, and a few 1 chaos uniques. So let's get into it. In this video, I'll be doing an overview of this build. I'll be going over why it's great to play, what skills you want to use and how to use them, and how to progress. If you're looking for any details on particular skills, then you should open up the path of building and refer to the details in there, or feel free to ask a question in the comments. So, in terms of this build's strengths, it has great clear. It has great explosion damage, 40% per kill, from being an occultist, and it has giant areas on those explosions. We use Plague Bearer, which is a fantastic clear skill, to basically walk through packs and instantly kill them, without actually having to cast many spells at all. We have great single target damage from Blade Blast, which is one of the best single target spells in the game, and we are able to stack a huge amount of Wither debuffs on enemies, which basically doubles your damage when you have max stacks. On top of that, we're able to apply 3 curses at a time on enemies, which will scale our damage and defensive layers even more. Speaking of defensive layers, this build has really high dodge and evasion, and actually becomes dodge capped when you use Vol Grace. So for boss fights, you'll have a really high chance of avoiding attacks. Since this build does no elemental damage, you can easily run elemental reflect maps, which makes early game mapping even faster and easier. And most importantly, this build is dirt cheap. You can start playing it in Act 6 with literally no investment whatsoever, and scale it up with a few 1 chaos uniques to do tons of damage. So I really recommend it as a fun, beginner-friendly league starter. So, let's get into the details of how you actually play this build. For single target, we use a combination of 2 spells, Blade Fall and Blade Blast. If you're unfamiliar with these skills, they're pretty easy to use. First, you cast Blade Fall and a bunch of blades appear in the ground, and then you cast Blade Blast, which explodes 1 blade and causes a chaining cascade of explosions for every other blade. When you're bossing with Blade Fall and Blade Blast, make sure to use your secondary abilities to boost your damage. Use Withering Step and your Withering Totems to get up to 90% more damage, and cast Vulnerability on the boss to get around 10% more damage. Also make sure to use Vol Grace when you're around a boss to cap out your dodge chance to make yourself a bit more tanky. For map clear, we use an ability called Plague Bearer, and really, even though I call this a Blade Fall Blade Blast build, it's also really a Plague Bearer build. Plague Bearer is one of the best skills in the game for map clearing right now, and it's remained totally unnerfed and just as strong as ever in the upcoming league. To use it, you need to press it once to activate it, kind of like an aura, and once it's activated, any source of poison, like your Blade Fall and Blade Blast, will give it stacks. You can then press it again when it's at max stacks, to create this circle of damage around you that does insane damage just immediately to everything around you. Try to keep this up as much as possible when you're mapping, as it's your main source of pack clearing. So now let's get into how you actually progress from a level 1 character in the Twilight Strand to a level 90 plus character with millions of DPS. All witch builds behave pretty similarly in the first 5 acts, and kind of have an optimal build pattern from acts 1 to 5. So instead of trying to go over all of that in this build guide, which would add a whole lot of complexity, I'm just going to link you a video of one of the best speedrunners in the game, going from act 1 to 5 on a witch. Use this video to see which skill gems and which links to get until you get to act 6. Make sure not to pick too many skill points and ascendancies that he picks. You want to make sure you get the occultist ascendancies I have in the build, and make sure not to diverge too far from the skill tree I have in the build. I have a specific Act 6 skill tree that you should take a look at, even going from Acts 1 to 5, to make sure you're not going too far off of it, so that you can easily respec into the tree at the start of Act 6. Once you get to Act 6, you can do a side quest for Lily Roth, which lets you buy almost every skill gem in the game from her. So it's a perfect time to open up the build and look at the skill gems I have selected for Act 6 and try equipping those. Once you're following the Act 6 skills and Act 6 skill tree I have picked out, you can begin looking forwards to the next checkpoint in this build, which is level 68. Once you hit level 68, you unlock a key unique in this build, Cosprey's Will. The reason that this gear is so important is that it gives you 60% chance to poison, which for a class and ascendancy like Occultist that doesn't have a lot of chance to poison built in is super powerful. So at level 68, make sure to check out the gear in this build and equip as much of it as you can. Clear things to equip are life and resistance gear to max your elemental resistance. You want to get the Cosprey's Will and equip it. And you also want to get Embalmer gloves. These are unique gloves that support whatever's linked in it with vile toxins. We're going to put a 4-linked Blade Blast into those gloves, which makes it a 5-link for just a few Chaos Orbs. It's super cost effective, and it's a great unique for this build. You'll also want to get 2 Obliteration Wands as your starting weapons with this build. From there, every 10 to 15 Chaos Orbs or so, you should have enough money to significantly upgrade your build. First, you're going to want to anoint Poisonous Fangs on your amulet. This should only cost a few Chaos in oils. Next, you're going to want to get the Sin's Rebirth unique flask. This will give you about 30% more damage, and for most leagues it hasn't been too expensive on League Start. The next really powerful but slightly more expensive upgrade are Cold Iron points. These will each give you about 30% more damage and cost anywhere from 5 to 30 Chaos Orbs at League Start. From there, you're going to want to get an Empower gem for your Plague Bearer. Make sure to buy it at level 2 at least, and you can level it up to 3 as you play. Or, if you have a lot of Chaos sitting around, you can buy a level 3 gem right off the bat. From there, you have basically everything you need for the damage in your build. From there, you should invest into getting as much life from your gear as possible. To do red maps effectively, you really want a life pool of around 4,500 health. And on top of that, having your elemental resistances overcapped to around 90% will let you do higher tier map mods that actually reduce your elemental resistances. So, that's a quick overview of the strengths of this build, how to play it, and how to progress through it. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment. In the meantime, have a good one.